So, Brunel, what do you think about our casting session today? How's it going out there, everybody? I figured for this week's discussion I would flip it up a little bit and actually do a video. So we were asked three prompts this week in our discussion post, and the first one was what are several options for procuring lead, tin, and antimony that you're going to use in casting? I think before we go into this discussion, we should probably discuss the three most popular types used in casting bullets. There's wheel weights, there is linotype, and monotype. And the difference between the three are the Brinell hardness. And that's just similar to other hardness ratings out there for metal. Brinell's mainly used in measuring the hardness of lead. I believe it's Lee or Lyman. They actually sell a Brinell gauge that you can use to dent your lead and actually check it. For Brinell hardness, and that's really critical. I think a lot of you are probably going to read this week about Brinell hardness and the critical of having extremely hard bullets versus extremely soft bullets, and what the magic mixture or the magic number is going to be for casting. Excuse me. But so the main thing I want to discuss is where to find this stuff, and you got to know what you're finding. So as you can see from right here, I have these 1 pound ingots. This is just done with a Lyman ingot mold. It's a 4-piece mold, and I usually pour these out of a casting pot into a mold, let them cool, drop them in water, and there I have these ingots that I can now drop into this dropper pot from Lee, and I can drop from the bottom of this into my molds. So these were wheel weights. I had about 60 pounds of wheel weights I had accumulated for free, and I melted them down, removed the steel, cleaned them, fluxed them, and put them into these 1 pound ingots that I will use for casting. Now, wheel weights are pretty good. They use about I want to say they're about a 95% lead, about a 2 to 3% antimony, and about 2-3% tin. Those vary, but you're going to get about maybe 7 to 10 Brinell hardness out of lead wheel weights. So these are great. I do a lot of shotgunning, shotgun reloading, and stuff like that. So these are great for some of the slugs that I'm trying to work out, and some of the slug molds I'm doing for testing. When you're dealing with linotype's a little bit harder. It has a lot more antimony and tin content in it, and a little bit less lead. And linotype lead is actually really good. It's used for most popular pistol bullets. And it usually runs around a Brinell hardness of about 15, 17, just kind of varies on the batch you get. And then as far as monotype, that usually runs up around 26, 28 Brinell hardness. And a lot of people use those and favor those for rifle rounds or rifle bullets. But as far as where to procure these from, procuring lead wheel weights is not hard to do. You can go around town to most of your tire shops, and in most of your tire shops, you'll probably find people, and your big corporate joints, probably not so much, but most of your smaller joints, they would probably want to work with you. You just go and, hey, say, I'm a student at SDI, or, I'm just into casting, or I want to make some fishing weights, whatever. 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you the lead. Usually your bigger, more corporate joints, you'll probably have to write them like a hand receipt saying, hey, I'm taking this lead because I'm going to be doing this with it. Reason why is a lot of these companies, they have to use a disposal service for their lead under OSHA, EPA, all these federal ridiculous guidelines. And so not only that, but they actually pay a lot of money to dispose of this lead in a proper means. 9 times out of 10, it's going to a scrapyard, and someone's making money off that, and they're charging the customer. So you can find out how they're getting rid of it and what they're paying. You can possibly pay them for it, or if not, get it for free. I like the free method better. So that's one place to go. And for those people that might not have that luxury, you can check Amazon. Amazon sells lead like crazy. There's all sorts of vendors on there that sell different variants of lead. So you can get just regular 95, 2 and 3, 2% tin, 3% antimony, which is about what you're going to get in wheel weights. They have linotype. They have monotype. There's a ton of different types of lead. I'm not going to go into them all right now for the sake of this video, just to stay on topic. But there's also a ton of places online that you can buy ready to roll, ready to cast lead. We're talking antimony, tin. There's all sorts of different things you can get online from different suppliers that sometimes, a lot of times, they have better prices than Amazon. You can also buy raw antimony, raw tin, and of course make your additions yourself. That gets a little complicated because, number one, you're going to need to know the Brinell hardness of your lead ingots as far as what it contains, and it's just going to be approximate. And of course, you can melt down raw materials as far as antimony, tin, arsenic, whatever you want to do. You can melt down those raw materials into your lead ingots and actually, alloy them together. You're going to have to do a lot of fluxing to do that. I'm sure that'll be covered in the books, but you can actually make those additions yourself. It might be a cheaper aspect than maybe a procuring. For, say, monotype lead. You might be able to make those additions at your house and save a little bit of money. But to find pure antimony and pure tin, that's a little bit of a challenge. So as far as procuring lead, just to recap, you got tire shops, lead wheel weights. Also, I want to mention, you can go out to your shooting berms at your local range, and you could probably ask the range owner if you can clean his berms out. I'm sure he would be ecstatic to let you do it. Here's the thing, a lot of times if you don't have jacket separation from the projectiles, you're going to be left with lead that is still contained in jackets. That's not a problem, because when you come down to melting it in your melt pot, all of that copper is going to float to the top because it's lighter than lead. So all the copper, steel, whatever's in there, you're going to find that stuff floating the surface. You skim it, flux it, let all the crap bubble up and do a black crusty mess. Scoop that stuff off, and you have castable lead. Now, here's another thing I'm going to recommend. This is just going to be a little tip I'm going to throw out there for folks. If you start doing that, and you accumulate all this copper, and you accumulate all this brass from your reloading that you can't use anymore, that you've shot 9-10 times, and it's not going to be conducive to put it back in your rifle because it probably just ain't safe or it's cracked, whatever, save that stuff. Number one, you can go scrap it at a scrapyard. Number two, where it even gets better, if you can make a small kiln out of a propane torch or something, you get you a little crucible, you can melt that stuff down and pour those into brass ingots, copper ingots, and stuff like that, and you will get premium dollar for those things at scrapyards. So that's another thing to keep in common. I never throw metal away that I accumulate in the process of casting lead. Whether I'm pulling that lead out of bullets or I'm pulling that lead out of wheel weights or whatever, you're going to end up with some type of scrap raw material in there that you can melt down and make money on. So something to keep in mind. Based on my findings, do I think the cost of casting bullets would be reasonable? There's a big debate in that because, yeah, is it cheap to go out there and buy 100 rounds of jacketed, bullets for reloading? Yes, it can be. It depends on how you see your time. I enjoy, I enjoy casting lead. It's fun. It's the kiddos just absolutely love it. They think it's fascinating. There's just something about melting metal and pouring it and making different shapes out of it that just absolutely intrigues me. It can take a lot of time. Now, if you think time is money, then it's probably going to be a waste of your time. But if you want to do more shooting for less money, casting bullets is going to be right up your alley. Now, for example, I have in my little shed over there, I have 60 pounds of these 1 pound lead ingots that I got out of wheel weights. Now, it took me about 3 or 4 hours to process all that and put it into these lead wheel weights. But here's the thing, it was all free. So granted, I put 3 or 4 hours into it. If I want to say, you know, where I work, I make about 22 an hour, 23 an hour. So if I want to say 23 bucks an hour, I saved myself a ton of money, because to get about 5 pounds of lead, you're going to be about 40 bucks, 39 bucks, anywhere online to get about 5 pounds of just wheel weight grade lead, where you're going to have a Brunel hardness of about 910 on the Brunel scale. So with these, I have 60 pounds of this for free. And I put 4 hours of my time into it. So you can say that's 80 bucks and I got 60 pounds of it. To me, that is well worth the time. Now, you're going to have about 150 bucks in a casting pot right here. You know, you're going to drop about $22 a piece in some of these molds, maybe a little bit more depending on how fancy you're going. I'm not going to go full into the various types of molds. You can get custom molds that are sized to where you don't have to resize your bullets. You can get molds to where they will account for actually powder coating, the thickness of powder coating that you're going to put on your bullets, and you can actually powder coat at home. I have a YouTube channel called The Gun Psychiatrist where I do a lot of this stuff, so you can stay tuned to that. If you're interested, you might find some of this stuff fascinating. But to say the least, I personally prefer that casting bullets is well worth the time, well worth the money, well worth the investment, and it allows you to shoot more for less money. So that's just me. But if you're, like I said, if you're a person that values your time and you're paying for lead and all this, it might not be cost effective for you. Third prompt that we were asked this week was why might the skill to cast bullets be a valuable one to have, even in the process is not as cost effective or practical as purchasing factory loads? Well, I think the more skills you can develop as a person, the better off you are. As far as me having this skill to cast bullets, there's different types of people out there. Some people might find themselves as preppers. Others might find themselves as enthusiasts, what have you. I think the bigger discussion is, when we look in the headlines some years ago, we found that most of the smelting plants have closed down. And we only have a handful of small companies that actually cast lead in the United States. With that being said, some do believe that there could be a point in time that lead pretty much dries up and it all gets outsourced to China. And with the Communist government of China controlling the lead, they can also control the ammunition supply. That's one argument. I don't really know any other arguments than that. Then, hey, what happens if our lead supply dries up, or the EPA outlaws it for commercial use? I mean, you look at a lot of cars now, they're going to steel wheel weights. They're a lot bigger, but they're going to steel. Lead is becoming harder and harder to find. So, for commercial use, now for the crafty one out there that has a way of finding lead, whether in lead pipes, what have you, you can come up with a steady supply of lead. It's not hard to find, and if you're smart about it, you can actually reuse lead you find from the range. So having the skill to cast bullets would be really important, because there might become a day and time where you might, who knows, bullet technology might advance to a certain state to where, hey, you might only have copper bullets out there, and you prefer to shoot lead, or you might get better performance from lead, or something. Who knows? There's a million reasons. My biggest skill to be able to cast bullets is, number one, the cost-saving approach, and number two, from more or less a prepping standpoint, to where I might not be able to procure lead eventually here sometime. So being able to do it myself is even better. I'd be interested to hear other people's reasons for wanting to do this, but as you can see, we're going to have a nice little casting session today. I got lead in the pot. We're running about 700 and we're about 650 degrees. I'm going to crank it up a little bit and get to casting some lead. So I'm looking forward to people's responses, and, happy casting.